Why has Boise, Idaho been the most successful city for people moving to new cities? Ever since COVID, people have been leaving California, New York, and other cities by the hundreds of thousands and moving to places all over the country. So today we are going to talk about why Boise, Idaho is the best of those cities to move to. We will talk about what makes it a successful decision, the cost of living here, the benefits, both short-term and long-term. And at the end of this video, you will have a much better idea on why it's a top spot to consider and if it is the right decision for you. My name is Brady and I'm a Boise local and I'm a licensed realtor. If you have any questions during this video, leave a comment or text or call me anytime. Now, when it comes to cities people are relocating to, it often boils down to a few different areas. You have Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Dallas, and Houston in Texas, and then many of the cities in Florida. You also have Arizona and Vegas. There are a few others, but those are some of the most popular places that people are relocating to, and every other area has its pros and cons, but the differences often boil down to four main categories. So we're going to go through those four categories and talk through why Boise, Idaho comes out on top for cities to relocate to. We'll also look at the areas Boise might not be a fit for some of you. The first category is a big one. It is something that has many aspects to it, but finances are a big category when you are thinking of relocating to any new city, and Boise has some of the best financial benefits. When you compare home prices across a few of the popular cities to relocate, the average home in Nashville is $440,000. In Austin, Texas, it is $550,000. Fort Myers, Florida, it is $350,000. Dallas is $320,000. Phoenix is $430,000. And in Boise, it is $480,000. And if you look at other cities people relocate to, the same trend continues, where only Austin, Texas has more expensive home prices than Boise. But a major difference is the property taxes in Boise versus these other cities, especially in Texas. In Texas, it's in the 2% range per year. I know some people in Texas pay more than that, whereas in Boise, it's around 1%, depending on where you're at, which might not sound like much, but that can be $5,000 a year or around $400-ish a month extra that you pay in Texas versus Boise, which is the equivalent to right around $50,000 more that you could spend on a home at our current 6.5 interest rate. So even though home prices in Boise have risen and they seem much more expensive than places like Texas, you actually have much more purchasing power in Boise if you factor in the monthly costs. And this doesn't even include the utility costs, which we're going to talk about. This means you could realistically buy the same home in Boise even if it is $50,000 more, and you'd be paying the same monthly payment. Then if we look at the other taxes, this is where I think Boise has some of the most downside in the financial category when you're looking at these relocation cities. In Idaho, your tax burden overall is 7% per year versus like a California where it's 10 to 12%, sometimes more. But Idaho still has a state income tax of 5.8%. So if you compare Boise to Nashville or Florida, where there is zero state income tax, it is one of the few factors that makes other cities other than Boise a better choice. Thankfully, Boise has some other great financial benefits. One of those is the monthly utility costs. Idaho is constantly in the top 10 every year for some of the cheapest utility costs, which is amazing for your monthly budget. Idaho also has cheaper groceries, whereas in Florida, it's the 5th most expensive state for groceries. And then when you combine everything together and you just look at the cost of living as a whole, there are a couple places that rank each state by overall affordability. And the only state that ranks better for affordability than Idaho out of the relocation states is Tennessee. Every other top relocation state is more expensive than Idaho as a whole. So if you are too focused on one aspect of finances, if you only look at state income taxes or you only look at home prices, you can get the wrong idea, because looking at the entire financial category, Boise and Idaho are more affordable than almost every other place people relocate to. Before we get into the other three categories, and then the last one that I think is the most important category by far, again, my name is Brady Fagel. I am a licensed real estate agent, and I make these videos every single week to help people make the best decision for their families, even if that means Boise is not the best decision for you or them. So if you're thinking of moving to Idaho, shoot me a text or a call anytime. I answer the phone, and I am the person that works with my clients. I don't hand you off to anyone on my team. Plus, if you can do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out and it helps you not miss out on any of the new videos. This next category is location, which is both the location within the country and then the zoomed in on kind of the location within the cities itself. So Boise is obviously in the Pacific Northwest, which comes with some unique factors that are much different than living in the South or the eastern part of the country. In the Pacific Northwest, we don't have some of the weather conditions that other states have. There are no hurricanes here like there are in Florida and other southern states. In Idaho, we don't have tornadoes like you get in Tennessee in the Midwest. We also don't have humidity, which I know many people prefer to avoid. So really the only downside to the weather in the Boise area is the winters, which for some people is definitely a reason Boise wouldn't be on a top relocation spot. But I also think that winters in Boise get overblown at times, when sometimes I think people assume Idaho is more like a Wyoming or it's a Midwestern state like Wisconsin. But the winters here are usually 35 to 40 degrees, and it snows about 10 days a year with 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 of the snowstorms bringing in more than a few inches to where it actually affects your daily life. Boise is the same as states like Tennessee, but of course you just can't compete with some of that warmer weather that you get in the southern relocation states. The other big benefit of Boise location is the mountains. This is something that you just do not have in other popular relocation areas. We have the Rocky Mountains with mountain views anywhere you live in the Boise Valley. The only other comparable cities that people move to would be like a Salt Lake or a Denver or, Bozeman, Montana, but those are still similar to Boise in other aspects, and I think Boise has more benefits in other categories. So when you combine everything that come with the location of Boise, I think it comes out on top. We don't have the natural disasters. We have the beautiful mountains for your hiking, your camping, and just general beauty. And so many people here love Boise because of those outdoor activities. It offers, we have the Boise River Greenbelt, hundreds of miles of hiking and mountain biking trails. The only downside of Boise is the location, being kind of isolated. We're not close to other major metro areas. And then when we zoom in and we look at the locations in and around Boise, one nice thing is you have a ton of smaller suburbs. There are 7 main suburbs of Boise, which is a fraction of the suburbs that other metro cities have. When you're moving to Florida or Houston, Dallas and Denver, the cities are so large that you have dozens of suburbs. And if any of you ever have looked into moving to places like Houston, it will give you a headache just trying to figure out the 50 different suburbs and sections and all the different areas. Whereas in Boise, it is still manageable. And it's a big benefit that there are still small suburbs with, 10 to 20,000 people, all within 30 minutes of the metro area. And that can be hard to find in other places. So it's a huge plus for those of you looking to live in a place that is a smaller city while still getting access to everything that a large metro area like Boise would have. The next category is something that has sparked a large majority of people looking to relocate. It is also a hot topic, and that is the politics. Idaho as a whole is a very red state, which is a huge reason Idaho has been such a success for people relocating. But there's also a part of this that a lot of people don't know, and that makes Boise a top relocation city. But the first part of that is the obvious, how Republican Idaho is. If you move to the Boise area, you will of course have favorable gun laws. You don't need a concealed carry permit to carry a gun here. It's not illegal to have a magazine larger than 10 rounds like it is in Oregon. You can have ammunition shipped to your house. If you want, you can grocery shop at Walmart and then buy a gun on the way out. And as long as you're not a felon, you can drive home with that gun. If you need to protect yourself, you don't have to worry that you will be sent to jail for doing so. And this makes Idaho and Boise a super popular place for people who believe in their Second Amendment. Idaho politics are also really favorable for families, and just the environment of Boise, which we'll talk about later. Idaho is also socially very Republican, so if you follow Christ and you believe a baby's life should be protected and you don't want your tax dollars going to programs like that, it makes a great place for people who believe in that. They also recently just banned the use of pronouns by teachers in schools, so teachers will now only refer to students by their gender at birth, and then they're protected in the event of any lawsuits around pronouns. It's a large reason that many people move here. And now, of course, you will find this in other states, especially places like Texas and Florida, which is why I think the last category that we talk about is something that just puts Boise above the rest of these relocation cities and what makes it such a successful relocation spot. Before that, though, the other side of the politics in Boise, I don't think people realize that there's a growing community of Democrats in the city of Boise itself. It's nothing like a Portland or a Seattle or an LA, but there is an active social movement. You will see pride flags and pride rallies, which for some people is bad news, but for moderates or liberals, it makes Boise a place that they can manage to live. And for those people who are trying to get away from it, you still have very red roots in Boise, and you definitely have it in the suburbs. If you drive through suburbs, you will see Trump flags and signs everywhere, and the Boise area is still very, very red. So there can be a political environment that is just much more balanced, and it's not going to be crazy on either side, but you can find a place that you want to live. This last category is something that you can't really measure, and it has many different aspects, but it is the overall just environment. I think Boise is one of the best places to relocate to because of how great the environment is here. And I will explain what I mean by the environment. One of the first things I hear people say when they move to Boise is usually two things. It is they can't believe how clean it is, and they can't believe how friendly the people are. I even know people who visit from northern Idaho and say that people in Boise are friendlier here than in North Idaho. So the first part of the environment is just how great the people are. Your neighbors will get to know you, strangers will say hi and want to learn about you. The service at all of the businesses is amazing, and Boise is just super clean. Even in the downtown area, you won't find very much trash, and there isn't homeless people like there is in other relocation cities. Boise has a small homeless shelter downtown, and if you visit the downtown area, you might see 5 or 6 homeless people, but most of those will be in some of the city parks. In the suburbs, I can almost guarantee you won't see any homeless people, and this is kind of a part of that political and just overall environment that makes Boise, one of the top relocation cities. But that also includes the safety of Boise. Boise is one of the safest metro areas in the country, and if you compare Boise to Nashville, Austin, Dallas, Fort Myers, and Phoenix, Boise is the safest metro area out of all of those. And that doesn't include the suburbs of Boise, with a place like Eagle, Idaho, where crime is 60% lower than the national average. When it comes to the environment that I mentioned in the political section, Boise is just a great place to live, especially for families. This is something that really, it just can't be measured. Boise has ranked consistently in the top 10 for best places to live, and is consistently rated as a top place to retire in a number of different sources, which is really about the only way to measure it. But the rest is just from talking to people who move here and from experiences like mine, where I have lived in Boise almost my entire life. You are someone who wants to raise a family, there's an amazing culture here. If you want to homeschool, Boise has some of the best resources in the country. The people around you and in your neighborhood want to support you and will be your friends. And if you talk to people who moved here in the last few years, a large majority of them will talk about just how great of a decision it was. A lot of people stay here and convince their friends and families to follow. You feel safe, you have great things to do, like the Village in Meridian or BSU, the summer concerts, Topgolf, and of course all of the outdoor activities that we talked about earlier, like the hiking and skiing and the hunting and fishing, that other places just don't offer in the same way that Boise does. So if you are considering Boise as a place to live, your most important step will be figuring out the best suburb for you and your family. It can make or break your move to Boise. So watch this video here where I go through every suburb in the Boise area and I rank them from A to F with pros and cons. Thank you guys for watching. I look forward to meeting you in person.